Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. I will hopefully all goes well. Send me a panicky email if anything goes up. See ya.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope it's afternoon, is it? Yeah, for most of you, I'm sure it's afternoon. If we've got some Perth colleagues joining, then perhaps it's still morning for you. Welcome to this webinar, ASCILITE webinar. Myself and hopefully Justine Maldon will be joining shortly. I'm just going to take off the waiting room so that I don't need to keep looking if I can work out how to do that. You can remind me how to take off the waiting room. It's usually in more. Maybe I can't. Okay. Michael, you put your camera on. Does that mean you know how I can take off the waiting room? No. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. To begin the session today, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which I'm presenting from today, which is the land of the Wangal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I acknowledge that these lands were never ceded. I also pay my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here today. All right, so the aim of today's session is really to just give you a brief overview of how to write a great ASCILITE paper. We have a few examples to share with you. And we'll talk you through those today. But really, I'm really keen to hear, happy to answer any questions that you've got along the way. So pop them in the chat. I'll keep my eye on it and hopefully be able to answer them. As I said, yeah, I'm hoping to be joined by my ASCILITE executive colleague Justine, but she might be having some troubles getting in, possibly. So for now, you can hear from me. I am the vice president, for those of you who don't know me, of ASCILITE, and I look after a few different portfolios. Tell Us, if any of you have done Tell Us, I look after that one, Women in Academic Leadership, and a range of other things. Okay, so let's get started. Let me see. Yeah, let me get started, but now the screen isn't working. Got it. Okay. Nice. Okay, so a very quick broad brush overview of some of the things that we'll cover today. We're going to share some examples with you, but really just in general, if you're writing for ASCILITE, an ASCILITE paper, there is some of the things that our top award-winning papers have told us in the past. So we're really looking for papers that bring out your passion, your research interests, but also have a little bit of your personality in them. I think that often makes for a good paper when you really feel the humans behind the writing. So yeah, no AI generated content, please. We're looking, a good paper has a really good narrative flow through it. Obviously, for those of you who've written conference papers or journal articles before, you'll know the sort of general structure of a paper in terms of introduction, a little bit of background, a little bit of literature. What was your method? What did you find? How does that fit in contemporary things that are going on in that context of that topic, and then what's your conclusion. Very hard to do for a concise paper because it's such a short space. But even, just touching on some of those topics, it might not be a classic evidence or scientific paper where you've collected data and analyzed it. It could be more of a conceptual piece. But no matter the type of the way that you write your papers, try and just make it connected. And that's always hard as well to do when you've got a few authors on the paper. So think about that overall flow if different people are writing different sections. There are templates for each of our papers. You'll find them on the website. So please do try and stick to the template and the format for the paper. That's probably the best advice that you can start with. Often reviewers' feedback will be about having not stuck to what we require, and it just makes the whole process for us when we create the proceedings. Everybody's a volunteer in this whole process, so making it easier for us to do comparisons and do reviews, really helps. Obviously, look at past papers. All of our proceedings are available on the ASCILITE website. So you can have a look for other examples of concise papers, other examples of posters, and have a look at the kinds of things that people have written. You should be able to, from looking at proceedings, also get an indication of which won awards. If you're looking to win a Best Paper award at the conference, shoot for the stars, and hopefully you can see some great examples in our past proceedings. And obviously, well, I hope you must link to the theme of the conference, which this year is about connections. So the official title is "The Future is Connection, Collaboration, Creativity, and Compassion in a Digital Society." Okay, so just a brief note there also about the awards, and that the award is based on your written paper. And so we don't turn up to your presentation at the conference and judge your presentation. When we give out Best Paper awards, they're already pre-decided from the review team. Yeah, we will maybe notify those people who've been shortlisted for an award before the conference. So then we announce it at the conference. And then if you're coming to the conference and you want to attend some of the Best Paper nominees, we'll put that on the program at the time. I'm going to jump to questions as I go, and I see there's one in the chat. Would it be possible to have an ASCILITE overleaf template for those of us who use it? Overleaf as in the format. Good question. I can certainly take that to the proceedings team and and the program team actually, and see if that's possible. I don't know if anyone's got the expertise. Richie, I might even call on you if you care to share your email. If we don't have expertise on the team to set that up, then maybe we could ask one of yourself, your good self, or our community members to help with that. So thank you, great suggestion. Okay. Can I elaborate a bit more on the theme? Excellent question, because the next slide says just that. So our theme is obviously quite generic and overarching. We do that on purpose because we want to encourage as many people as possible to submit to the conference. So we do have sub-themes, and we do ask you when you submit your paper through the portal, you will be asked which sub-theme it's mostly related to. And again, the sub-themes are also quite we've tried to keep them general in nature, so that again, you can kind of think about how your research that you're currently doing fits with one of those in some way or other. But that's up to you. That's where the storytelling and the narrative comes in. How can you, touch on some of these words within your paper, within your title, maybe, it's relevant. It's relevant to the conference. And we came up with these themes, for those of you who aren't aware, through a sort of a collective gathering. We did a Padlet with the community, and we asked people to make suggestions, and we sort of pulled all that information together. So these are the sort of the top things that were on people's minds. I would say rebalancing the algorithm for me would be probably one of the ones that could make a whole different set of senses depending on what your background and what your context is. But yeah, we leave that really up to you. I've never seen any paper get rejected because it didn't match any of the themes. Usually you can find a hook into one of those. And just back to that overarching theme, this kind of came out of last year's conference where we were gathering ideas at that time. And I think people were kind of indicating that they were a bit over AI. It was AI and everything. And what happened to the people, the human, you've all heard human in the loop kind of expressions. And that people enjoyed the conference because there was opportunities to collaborate, to network, to feel connected with other people. And so, and this whole idea of relational pedagogy, when we talk about compassion, relational pedagogy of care, those kind of sort of conversations were coming through quite strong. So that's how we landed on the theme. So that's a long-winded way of saying it's really up to you to make what you want of those sub-themes and themes. So for anyone who doesn't know, these are the types of papers that we have. You each has, as I said, there's a template for each of these, so go and have a look at the template. But they're more about page length. For full papers and concise papers, they're more about page length than word count. And you do need to be you do need to stick to that. So the reviewers, if your papers, I've seen this in the past, and I've probably been guilty of it myself. I'm not quite sure whether I'm concise or I'm a full paper. I've written about 6 or 7 pages, and it's like, which one do I want to go for? So really, that's up to you. We do tend to get way more concise papers than full papers. So just have a think about which you want. The concise papers really are meant to be about smaller projects, works in progress, new ideas that you want to sort of, build up. So that sort of smaller scale. Great question in the chat, Geet. Full paper, maximum 10 pages. Does that include reference list? Yes. So again, you've got to think about how many references do you really need. So this is not like a journal article. A journal article, does have very strict word counts. So our 10 pages, there's also like a typography. I'm pretty sure it's probably Times New Roman 12 point or something like that. Whatever it is, it's in the template. It's very clear, and you must stick to that. So that will, because you can't go, okay, yeah, I can get it all in 10 pages, but I'll just make the font size, 8 point or something. So you can't get away with that. A little bit. Could I please speak a little more on rebalancing the algorithm sub-theme and possibly an example? I can't, sorry, that's not the aim of this presentation. If I have time at the end, maybe we can come back to it, but we're not looking for anything specific. Like I said, the themes are for you to interpret. We don't have examples for each sub-theme. We really look at whatever gets submitted. And if you're talking about algorithms, if you're talking about, I mean, in my head, when we talked on the program committee about that sub-theme, it was kind of about, everything is about everything's become algorithmic. You know, where is the human kind of balancing out that sort of way of working, that systematic process? So that's probably all I can give you for now, but I'm happy to stay on at the end and chat a bit more. If you've got an example that you want to share or you wanted to discuss, that would be great. Pecha Kucha, we'll come to that in a little bit when we get to that point of the presentation. Okay, and just one other thing with your submissions, you can only be lead author on one paper. So many people submit 2 or 3 papers. If they come in a conference, they want to get most value out of it. Totally fine. You can submit as many papers, you can be on as many papers as you like, but only first author as like lead author as on one paper, and that kind of includes the presentation as well. So if you're on 3 papers, you can certainly present on all 3, but we would expect someone different, just so that we get more people have the opportunity to be at the conference, because there is a rejection rate through the reviews of papers, and we want to encourage as many people as we can to be at the conference. So our aim is not to reject any papers, really. So that's why we run this session. We really want you to understand what we're looking for and what's good value. Okay, I'll keep going. All right, some examples. This is an example, and I'm sorry that most of these are mine because I can talk to my papers. All right, so a couple of examples. We'll start with this one from 2022. It was a full paper, and it was about online assessment in business schools. And we looked at, what people were doing at that time. What were the challenges with good quality assessments in the online space. As you can see from the date, 2022, it was just before AI came onto the scene, so it didn't really cover any of that. But what I wanted to just share with you here today was just a little bit around the kind of feedback we got from the reviewers. So all the items in this list were the reviewer the criteria, sorry, that the reviewers used to grade the papers, and I've just put here like what grade we got from reviewer 1 and reviewer 2. So you can see reviewer 1 really liked it, excellent, 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 excellent. Reviewer 2, as you would expect, always reviewer 2, right? Not as impressed with the paper. So we got a weak here about the literature. And then we got a satisfactory here about the analysis, and a satisfactory about spelling and grammar and stuff. So this is an example of a paper that won the best paper award that year. It wasn't all perfect. There was definitely good feedback that we got from the reviewer that we then went back and updated. So yeah, so I thought I'd just share that. I've put a QR code if you're interested in reading the paper, but that's just a bit of a self-promotion more than anything, really. Okay, keep going. Let me just check the something a bit more about Pecha Kucha. Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, and these were some of the comments that were put in from the reviewer. So you can see they were interested in our information about future research. They thought it was suitable for the audience. So that's another thing that you need to think about. Who are the people who come to ASCILITE? They're people who are interested in technology, enhanced learning, digital learning. They're people primarily who either teach with technologies, love to use technologies in their teaching, or who support and design with technologies around teaching. So just think about who your audience are. If you've got some research that you're doing, is it relevant to this conference and to this audience? Because that's going to get you some, kudos with the reviewers. Some of the sort of the yellow ones, I think, were the reviewer 2 about, enhance the use of literature to make the paper stronger, relevant to current context in Australia and globally. So don't forget, we are an international conference. We do get overseas visitors. Probably when it's in Australia, we usually get probably about 20% are from New Zealand, our delegates, and probably another 5 to 10% from other countries, not Australia. So do think about your paper and does it fit in that broader spectrum? And even though it might be a study or something you're doing in your country, just maybe in the discussion think about how does it get open, because yeah, we do think about that. I'm noticing my good friend Justine is not here. Checking in the list. No, I don't think she is. Okay, so I'll keep going. Sorry, you got to just listen to me. Okay, what's next? All right, this was Justine's example, so that's why I was hoping she would be here by now. This was she and her colleagues, her colleague Michelle, won this in 2023. It was, yeah, best concise paper, and she's put a link there so you can go and have a look at it to sort of get the idea of what is involved. She hasn't shared. I think she was just going to talk to this, and she hasn't actually shared any further information. So I can't tell you any more about her best concise paper, but I do have another example, which is a little bit old now, sorry, which was another one of mine with colleagues at UTS at the time. Our paper was around this was a science-based, so in the Faculty of Science, we were developing some sort of framework to sort of, help people design, implement, evaluate the sort of whole flipped blended learning approach. And again, I've put in the feedback that we got from the two reviewers at the time. Reviewer 1, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 4, reviewer 2, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So, it's not a perfect, it didn't get a perfect score, both sets of fives, and you can also see that the criteria that was used in 2017 a little bit different. Fewer criteria, I suppose, but along the same kind of thing, looking for adherence to the theme, the quality, conceptually, whether it's innovative, are we actually filling a gap? Is there a need for this work? Is it written well? Interest to a diverse audience, and appropriate of the session type for the topic. Okay, so this is a little bit different. So this is looking at, for example, is this a concise paper? Should it actually be a poster? Is it meaty enough to be a paper? Should it be in a different category? So that's the other thing that can be looked at. Okay. I've done the same thing. I've just put a couple of the reviewer comments on there so that you can see. So we got some feedback there about clarifying the method that we used to develop that framework and how we collected data to evidence the framework. What else does it say? It would be of interest to ASCILITE delegates. And we'd written it in a. So this is another important point. If your discipline is like this one was from science, my other one was in business. But we wrote the paper in a way that even though we'd done the research in those disciplines, what we'd found in the discussion, the findings, what we'd found, we applied to more of a generic audience so that it's relevant to others outside of those disciplines as well. How are we going? Any questions so far? Okay, silence. I'll keep going then. And just one other thing I guess I was going to mention. So when the reviewers review papers, and we will actually, if you're interested in reviewing, we will be running a webinar on how to be a good reviewer, how to give constructive feedback for papers. We'll be running that in, I think, the end of June or early July. But it's the reviewers who indicate, when they do the review, they indicate whether they think that this is a paper worthy of a Best Paper Award. And then what happens is the program committee, sorry, the proceedings committee and the associate editors of that group, they'll then look at all of the papers that have been nominated by the reviewers, and then they'll make an overall judgment on the final papers that get the awards. Okay, keep going. So this is an example from a previous ASCILITE executive member, Hazel, who won in 2019 Best Student Full Paper. She, this is a slide from a previous presentation that she said we could share. She just highlighted some of the feedback that she'd got. I don't know, she hasn't put the scores, the raw scores, but this was the sort of written feedback that she received. Her paper was around learning analytics at that time. She was a PhD student, so that's why it fell under the student full paper category. So, you know, I guess for any of you here who might be students or might know of colleagues who are students, you know, they can certainly submit to this category. A suggestion, so she got some really good feedback about how good it was. So that's the green bits. The yellow bits she's highlighted, you know, ways to improve the paper. So in that aspect, she was asked to use the abstract to hook in the readers. And this is a really good point for you to think about too in your abstracts, because when we produce, and your title of your paper, so when we produce the program, the ASCILITE program, often delegates scan through, you know, we have a lot of, we will, at the Brisbane conference this year, we'll have 6 parallel sessions. So, you know, people are looking at 6 options, like which one shall I go to at the same time, right? So, you know, if you've got a title that pulls people in, a short abstract, because they also get access to the abstracts. I mean, they'll have access to your whole paper, but no one's going to read all the papers before the conference. Probably not even your abstract, maybe, I don't know. Depends how busy everybody is. But then, you know, if they're trying to decide between 2 titles, which sounds better, they'll go and look at the abstract. So you want to kind of hook people in and go, oh, this sounds great, I'm going to that session. So I'm giving you advice not only about getting your paper accepted, about how to win a Best Paper Award, but also how to get people to come to your session at the conference. I'm going to jump to a question from Sharon. If you submit a full paper and reviewers feel it's a concise paper, is it rejected, or are you given the option if you want to make changes and make it a concise paper? That's a great question. And I would personally, I would be saying to reviewers, and I'll make sure this comes out when we do the reviewer webinar, like giving advice to reviewers, is yeah, we don't want to reject a full paper because it's not quite full enough or at standard for full. I would definitely suggest that it goes back with, you know, requests for changes, and those changes and a suggestion that it moves to the concise category. That said, and I said this earlier, we do get way more concise papers than we do full papers. So if I was a reviewer, I'd be saying, give them advice about how to make this a better full paper, because we like full papers and we don't always have enough of them. So yeah, so I guess it will depend on the reviewers and the review committee who oversee that. Nice answer. And again, like I say, I don't want to reject any papers unless they're really bad. You know, we've talked about this on the committee. We want to give a conference should be developmental, and it should be an opportunity for you guys to, you know, get good feedback on your writing, on your ideas, and the opportunity to rehash them and go again. Okay. Okay, so these are the review criteria for this year's conference. They are similar to what I've already kind of showed you. So very important to make it relevant to the theme, the sub-theme, the intended audience. I've mentioned that. It needs to be original. So we don't want you to submit something that's already been published somewhere else. But we do want to make sure that it's got that broad set of implications for different audiences, but also it could be theoretical or it could be for policy. But it should really, I think a conference paper should always be quite practical. It should have some sort of practical takeaway for people to use whatever they've learned or whatever you've learned in your study into their practice where possible. Must situate it in the current literature. So this goes back to the question about the paper length must include, it includes all your references as well. So we're looking for current references, nothing too dated unless it's like, some seminal kind of works. And yeah, you got to articulate well how it links into theory and conceptual frameworks that might exist already. The fourth one says adopts an appropriate research methodology for the purpose of the paper. And again, if it's a theoretical paper, it might not have a research methodology that's similar to, these are the participants, this is how we collected the data, this is our ethics approval details, etc. So again, just think about what type of paper you're writing to. And we're looking for critical analysis and interpretation, and then, an overall ease of reading, formatting. We use APA 7 for the referencing style in our papers. And all papers are what we call double-blind peer-reviewed. So for those of you who don't know this means when you write your paper, you must anonymize it. So it can't refer to any of your previous work. It can't refer to, we usually say don't even refer to your university. Just put in brackets redacted for blind review or something like that, something to that effect. So that the reviewers can't make any biased opinions based on where it is. So you can say, this was at a regional university in Australia, or this was at a metropolitan vet institution, or, so you can kind of describe where the basis of the study was, or where this is happening, but perhaps not in specific detail. So keep it blind from your end. When it's accepted, we'll get you to, add back in all of that information. So when it goes to the reviewers, they don't know anything about who the authors are or where it's from. And you also, when you get your feedback, you don't know who reviewed it, who the two reviewers were. And that's where that comes from. Does anyone have any questions around that? Okay, posters and Pecha. This is not a forte of mine, I have to say. I was hoping Justine would be here, but unfortunately she's not. So basically, with your poster, so I think you put in an abstract for posters and Pecha just for review. When you actually make them, these are some of our top tips for them when they're accepted. And we usually try to accept all posters. It's very rare a poster wouldn't get accepted. And we will have a poster presentation section of the program. We suggest, these are just some tips if you want to do a really good poster or Pecha. Less text, more color. Use infographics or, relevant imagery. You know, if you're going to get AI to create your images, it does a great job. Some of AI tools do a great job of this these days. Some do a terrible job. So, you know, think about that. And basically, if you're submitting a poster, you need to be available. You need to be at the conference and hang around by your poster at the poster sessions to discuss it when people come along and want to ask you questions. Pecha Kucha, I think somebody put this in, thank you, in the chat before. 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide, about 7 minutes roughly. So the idea with Pecha Kucha is you're going to practice, practice, practice. Don't rush. So you set the Pecha Kucha up on auto advance, so you don't, there's no clicking, so you just talk as the slides go around behind you. Yeah, so get yourself a script and practice. And I've put that, there's pechakucha.com. You can, there's lots of information out there if you haven't done a Pechakucha before. Do you have to be attending a conference to submit a Pechakucha or a poster? Yes, 100%. So you need to be in the room and actually speak to your Pechakucha, because that will be a parallel session on Pechakuchas, with a whole bunch of people all lined up ready to go. And posters, I think we're still finalizing the program, of course, but last year, I think we're going to try and copy something similar to last year. It'll probably be at the end of the first day. We'll have a dedicated session just for posters, and we might do some drinks and nibbles as well to encourage people to come and take a look and a walk around the poster area. Oh, okay. So some key dates. The call for papers is currently open. You're welcome to submit now. If you haven't volunteered to be a reviewer, we would love you to do that. There's always details on the website and in the bulletin about how to do that. We're planning to close the call for papers around the end of June, at which time also we hopefully will have our full list of reviewers, and then we'll send that information all once the papers, if you want to submit before the 29th of June, that will make our team very happy. We'll send things out as soon as things come in. So you might get your feedback a lot earlier if you get it in sooner. But if you're like me and you're doing it at 11 p.m. on the 29th of June, then you know there'll be a 2, 3, 4 week turnaround for the reviewers to get that feedback in. Then eventually you'll get your feedback. We are opening registrations on Monday next week, and early bird. So the whole process of peer review, feedback and changes will be done by the 5th of October. So that's when we close early bird registration. So you'll know if your paper's been accepted. I mean, hopefully you'll know by September at the latest, early September. And you'll know that, yeah, you've got a place at the conference if you like it. All right, I think that's pretty much it from me, unless anybody has, and hopefully you do, have some questions. You feel free to take your microphone off, shout them out, put them in the chat. Tarath, for those of us who haven't had the pleasure of attending an ASCILITE conference before, can you provide some idea of the presenter and attendee profile in terms of job function and also type of organization they represent? Of course, and welcome to Rath. So the ASCILITE membership, we've got about 2,000 members, and we aim for around, I'm hoping we get 400 people at the conference this year. And I would say the majority of the audience and our members work in higher ed. There's probably oh, I wouldn't know what the split is, but in terms of job roles, they're quite varied. So there's a huge percentage of people who are ASCILITE members and who come to the conference who are working in what we call the third space. So I'm sure many of you here are in that space too, and you know what I mean. For those of you who don't, learning designers, educational developers, learning technologists, media developers, what have I missed? Help desk and support around the LMS, those kind of roles. So that's kind of one big cohort that we have. So people are looking for ideas. That's why I say about practice. You know, what are people doing in their assessments and in the design of their digital spaces and their classrooms activities, and you know, what can we take away from that and then share with our institutions? So that there's a big group of people who work in that space. There's also a big group of academics who come, who are teaching in all sorts of disciplines. They might be teaching in business, they might be teaching in physics, they might be teaching in education, like as in K to 12 education or higher education. They might be teaching communication skills or chemistry, or so we have a whole range of discipline academics who come along at all ranges, from research assistant to tutors to professors. And where they're all connected is around technology enhanced learning. So all of the people who come to the conference, they've got a real passion or a desire to learn more about how to integrate technologies into their learning and teaching. And then obviously we've got a few very high level people who come along. You know, we don't usually get VCs to the conference, but we do often get PVCs, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic or Deputy Vice Chancellor Education, if they can squeeze in, you know, some time into their very busy schedules. People who, learning and teaching centres in an institution, we often get heads of learning and teaching, or those learning and teaching people, academic advisors, academic skills advisors often come along. Pretty much everybody really, but I would say, yeah, the third space is our biggest group. And in terms of organisations, probably mostly higher ed, some vet as well. We do have a nice representation of vendors. So our sponsors are vendors like Echo 360, Canvas, so Instructure, D2L. Who else have we got this year? Portflow. A bunch of vendors come along, and we have a vendor space where they promote their products. So, and they'll also come along to some of the sessions. And there are great sponsors, so they'll be there, and they often sometimes bring along team members as well. Question: does ASCILITE offer any specific support initiatives for first-time attendees or HDR students? We don't. So there's a bunch of reduced registration fees for people who are involved with ASCILITE. And I'm thinking primarily about, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but we have a community mentoring program, CMP. If you're on that program as a mentee, we do offer a 50% reduction of the registration fee. We do also have, I think, I'm pretty sure, I'm just going to open it up and take a look, a student option. Yeah. Do we? Okay. Yeah, registration, student full. So if you're a member of ASCILITE, you get a discounted, it's cheaper. So if you take a look here, we've got like if you're not a member and you're paying after the early bird, it's this much. But if you are a member and you get the early bird, there's a difference. So yeah, this is what we offer, and as well as the community mentoring, and I think that would be it in terms of, I think, what you're asking. We do also offer for our first timers. There is a free. I don't think it's on here. No, it's not. We do have a welcome breakfast. So we give you breakfast on the first morning of the conference. It's a networking opportunity and just a way for us to say thank you for coming along. Doesn't mean you have to be there quite early before the conference starts on Monday morning, but yeah. And then the other thing, just to for those of you who might be new and you're not sure about how ASCILITE functions, we have this welcome reception that's included in the price of your registration, and that is on the Sunday night. So people who are flying in on Sunday, we do workshops on the Sunday that are optional that you can register for, and then we have a welcome reception. It'll be around 5:30 p.m. for a couple of hours. We do drinks and canapes, and that's all included as well. Feel like I've branched out a bit into I've put my ASCILITE conference organizing hat on. I am the chair of the conference this year, so that's why I can answer all your questions if you've got them. So happy to stay on and answer anything else about the conference. Is there anything else you wanted to ask about? We'll share the recording through the usual channels after today. If you wanted to go back and look at any of those slides, where we shared how to write a good paper. But is there anything else that you can think of that I haven't answered for you that you'd like me to? Let's see. Do all writers need to be present at the conference? Oh, that's a really good question, Sophie. No, they don't. So only one member of the team needs to be at the conference to present. And actually, I suppose that goes back to the other person who asked me about posters. If you submit a poster, do you need to be there? So one person on the team has to be at the conference, yes. Any other questions? Not seeing anything. Okay, well, if there's nothing further, then I'll thank you all for giving up your time to come and listen to me for 50 minutes. And I hope to see you all at the conference. And if you do have questions, feel free to shoot them through to the conference email or the ASCILITE email. And we're always happy to answer any questions or contact me directly. Yeah, see you in December, hopefully.